For 117 days, the northern Los Angeles community of Porter Ranch was the victim of the largest natural gas leak in American history. My home is about as close as any to a well that leaked 5 to 6 billion cubic feet of methane. Methane plus the mercaptan, which is the odorant, which turns out to be possibly toxic, and volatile organic compounds, including benzene, which is a carcinogen. That's, as Congressman Knight said, a Empire State Building filled with gas every day for 117 days. Over 7,500 families, including my next-door neighbors, have been forced to relocate for months. Schools have been closed. Businesses have suffered. The industry subculture was that methane could only be a problem if it burned or exploded, and as long as you were a few hundred feet away, everything was fine. Now we've discovered that a natural gas leak with mercaptan, with volatile organic compounds, can be an air toxin 5 miles, or Congressman Knight says even further than 5 miles away. The U.S. Department of Transportation's Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, PHMSA, has established federal safety regulations for natural gas transportation, which my colleague from Northern California will address, but they have no regulations for natural gas storage. Our California regulations are weak. The history will show you of this incident will show you how weak. Wells were drilled in the 1950s, and they were then used to create the 5th largest natural gas facility in the country, located just blocks outside the Los Angeles city limits. It stores 160 billion cubic feet of natural gas. That's roughly 80 billion of working gas, 80 billion of cubic gas. The pipes are eligible for Social Security. That's how old they are. But even in the 1950s, they knew that there should be a subsurface safety valve, and they installed one on well SS-25. In 1979, they took it out and didn't replace it. And here's the bad part. And they were in compliance with the non-existent federal regulations and with the weak state regulations, because the state regulations just required you have a subsurface safety valve if you were in 300 feet of a home or school. Yet we've learned that this is dangerous 5 miles away. The testing that was required every year was just to determine whether there was actually leaking gas at that moment. No testing to find whether there were anomalies in the pipe and to repair those anomalies. That's why, along with 17 colleagues, I've introduced the Gas Storage Safety Act, and Congressman Knight has a similar bill that would require PHMSA to promulgate and enforce safety standards for natural gas storage facilities. In addition, it creates a grant program to do some research to find a less toxic version of mercaptan, so that we don't put something in the gas for safety and then discovered that it's causing health problems for a 5-mile radius. We need tough national standards. So far, PHMSA has issued an advisory asking, please, pretty please, for the industry to follow the American Petroleum Institute standards. At a minimum, we should immediately require that those standards be followed and then move up from there, not just ask. And if you're concerned that the API standards might be too tough, I've checked with Bernie. The American Petroleum Institute is not a socialist organization. Not only do we have to look at the safety of each storage facility and each well, but you need a robust system. As Mr. Capuano has heard me say many times, too big to fail is too big to exist. This facility by itself provides 80% of the natural gas storage for the LA metro area. So our regulators are told it may not be safe to reopen, but it is necessary to reopen if people are going to generate electricity and be able to heat their homes and heat water in the Los Angeles area. Never again should a major metropolitan area be dependent or so dependent on just one facility. So I look forward to working with you to address this issue. I'm relatively confident my own state will get tough regulations because there's huge political pressure to do so. But this incident needs to be an alarm clock that goes off and is a wake-up call, and it needs to be loud enough to be heard here in Washington, 3,000 miles away. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Ms. Spear, welcome back. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Mr. Chairman, thank you to Ranking Member Capilano.